Hello, my name is Carly Rojas, one of the research assistants for the Rou Dalagurr Food Sovereignty Lab and Traditional Ecological Knowledges Institute. This video is intended to introduce community members to the exterior space that was recently allocated to the lab by Cal Poly Humboldt, thanks to the actions and resilience of the lab's faculty, staff, students, community, and partners. With this introduction, we hope to open a dialogue and space for feedback and community input, so that we may envision and realize futures for this space and landscape. The Food Sovereignty Lab is dedicated to foregrounding Native sovereignty and self-determination. Our steering committee includes representatives from local area tribes, and we continue to work with and outreach to spiritual and cultural leaders as well as Native artists and community members in partnership. We are always in consideration of how to build projects in a good way, with necessary protocols to prevent the exploitation of Native knowledges and communities. Alongside our development of this space, we continue to develop best practices and guidelines for how to center Indigenous voices and peoples in all of our projects and programs. We envision a continuity of Indigenous space near the Native American Forum, the Goudini Gallery, the Food Sovereignty Lab and Traditional Ecological Knowledges Institute, and the Native American Studies Department. We aim to integrate educational opportunities outside of the BSS building as part of a native plant landscape that is connected to and cared for by the Food Sovereignty Lab, an extension of the classroom space focused on learning Indigenous sciences. This includes the revitalization of the area originally designed to be a salmon smoking pit and the design of a native plant landscape that incorporates native artwork patterns and local native languages. The site under discussion surrounds the Behavioral and Social Sciences Building, the BSS, the Rou Dalagurr Food Sovereignty Lab and Traditional Ecological Knowledges Institute, BSS 168, the Native American Forum, and the Goudini Gallery. It is bounded by the Campus Center for Appropriate Technology, CCAT, and a service road on the western side, and General Parking Lot 15 on the southern side. General areas have been marked within this figure, and we will be discussing these areas individually to introduce y'all to these spaces and landscapes. Let's start with Site 1, the area right in front of the Native American Forum that sits at the entrance of the BSS Breezeway. This will be a location of a sign welcoming visitors to Wiyot Plaza and directing them to our various spaces and landscapes. This sign will include Indigenous-oriented maps of the region, of Wiyot territory, and of Wiyot Plaza designed by artist Tori McConnell, as well as narrative introducing people to the history and present of Wiyot Plaza and Wiyot territory. How might we welcome visitors to Wiyot Plaza and the surrounding landscape, introducing them to the space in a good way? Let us move to Site 2, what is currently a rock garden. At this point, this space has been conceptualized as a community seating area, which will create space for regalia cleaning, materials processing, storytelling, and traditional arts practice. This space could also be a rain garden, helping to support the health of plants that are downhill in this watershed and screening toxins from the roadway. Elements to consider. What should this area include? Could this include benches and concrete stools? What infrastructure should be in this space to support cultural activities such as acorn grinding and basketry? What plant relatives should we encourage to grow in this area? Site 3 is located on the south side of the Food Sovereignty Lab, in the walkway that connects to the handicap parking lot and the Native American Forum, which leads to the salmon smoking pit. This site has been identified as a possible location for a mural. An initial idea for a mural is the life cycle of salmon, from birth through to their harvest and spawning, progressing as one walks towards the salmon smoking pit along the back walkway. This mural will be commissioned from a local native artist. What mural should be on the south side of BSS 168? The space on the left of the walkway could host signage. It is important to orient visitors to the space and landscape so that they may enter into respectful relationship. Should signage include Wiyot and Indigenous language information about more than human relatives? What information should be included on signage throughout the exterior space? What should not be included for the public? This is Site B, originally intended to be a salmon smoking pit when the BSS was built. It is currently under construction in conjunction with our interior remodel. A raised metal pit will have sand, enabling the ability to put stakes in the ground for smoking salmon. The design of this area is an open question as well, though community members have proposed printed basketry patterns on the concrete, additional concrete stools for seating, such as those created by Almy Allen for the Native American Forum, and signage explaining to visitors the cultural importance of the area and encouraging them to come respectfully into this space. The Food Sovereignty Lab has been donated 6 garden beds by CCAT from their space allocation, the approximate area of which can be seen as Site 4 and Site 4 Prime. This area has become the Indigenous Garden. The area is partially shaded through much of the day and has predominantly clay soil with an average pH of 6.3. Here we see the vegetable bed, which will be migrated uphill in future years to increase sun availability for our annuals. We also have a geophyte bed, which can be seen here, in which Brodea, California poppy, camas, soaproot have all been planted, as well as Allium unifolium. Contiguous with our initial community outreach, the primary focus of the garden is on native plants, with additional plantings of some non-native plants that can be food producers and crops, while others can be masked with native plants that share traditional uses and niche. There will be a QR code at the end of this video so that you may take the Indigenous Garden community survey. Pictured here are the 2 herb spirals that are also part of the Indigenous Garden. This is Site 5, the proposed site of a small tan oak grove, which has been expressed as important by community members. One significant challenge of bringing tan oaks to this landscape is the presence of fungus which causes sudden oak death in the soil. The lab hopes to engage in research projects to explore the inoculation of tan oak trees against sudden oak death and possibly realize this space as a tan oak grove. Site 4 Prime, nested within the Indigenous Garden, is being considered for an elder garden area. We will be constructing an ADA-compliant path which will allow the top 2 beds of the Indigenous Garden to be accessible. These 2 beds will be constructed into raised beds, approximating the dimensions of the in-ground beds, and create an elder garden corner of the Indigenous Garden. We are also seeking the construction of a residentially scaled greenhouse whose runoff can be directed into the landscape to increase water availability and expand possibilities for the plant community. We are also commissioning Almy Allen to build a small shed that mirrors a traditional Wiyot Plankhouse, which will be located adjacent to the planned greenhouse, where the bamboo currently resides. We seek the respectful harvest of the bamboo, which will be gifted to the pandas at the Eureka Zoo. What other features would be desirable in the elder garden? What is important to the community that we include in this space? The area labeled as Site 6 is adjacent to Union Street and includes the area surrounding the parking lot and to the east of the Native Forum. Currently, this is a landscape that also includes native rose, mock orange, a white oak tree, and Oregon grape individuals. What plant relatives should be in this area? Please note the proximity to the road and the possibility of harvest for food, medicine, or processing with the mouth is limited. Site 7 is the area east of the BSS and north of the BSS. The area east is currently planted with Ceanothus prostratus and Manzanita individuals in a dense shrub line. The area north of the BSS has redwood understory covered in English ivy and a lawn. This area is partially shaded and offers the potential for extensive intentional plantings. We also seek the respectful complete harvest of the English ivy, which is a competitive non-native grower. The western area of this northern space does have additional species diversity, which has not been fully indexed at this time, but includes alder, huckleberry, red-flowering currant, and hardy fuchsia. What more than human relatives would you like to see planted here? How might this space, in its existing or modified future state, serve community? Site 8 is located in the central and southern portions of the exterior space, stretching down to General Parking Lot 15. This redwood woodland is shaded and has relatively acidic pH averaged at 5.6. Many species which are common to local redwood forests are represented in this woodland, though a complete species indexing has not been undertaken. Community members have expressed a desire to expand the berry-producing shrub population, the hazel population, and the Sitka spruce population. We are also considering the complete harvest of the populations of Scots broom and Himalayan blackberry in this landscape, as these are competitive and prolific non-native growers. We are actively working to understand the current vegetation structure, topography, and the resultant microclimates in these spaces to understand how we may encourage a healthy ecosystem. Now let us turn to Site 9, the area directly adjacent to the salmon smoking pit. Site 9 is considered a potential site for a rain garden and additional community seating. The rain garden would be appropriate to ensure downstream health of our ecosystem. Currently, this site is home to a pair of vine maples, numerous manzanita, an American beech tree, and some ground cover species such as woodland strawberry and iris. This site has existing underground infrastructure associated with the university's drainage system. As such, this site is being considered for additional community seating, as extensive planting or infrastructure construction is not appropriate in much of this space. How might this space and landscape serve community? That brings us to the end of this introductory video. Community input is critical as we envision and realize our outdoor classroom and exterior space. If you are able, please take the Indigenous Garden Community Survey and/or the Exterior Space and Outdoor Classroom Community Survey. The Rou Dalagurr Food Sovereignty Lab began as a student-led, community-funded space. If you are able, we ask that you continue to donate to help realize these Indigenized spaces on Cal Poly Humboldt's campus, as well as the Food Sovereignty Lab's other initiatives. If you have any questions or input, please feel free to reach out to us here at the Food Sovereignty Lab. Also, sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on all of our exciting programs and initiatives. Thank you for joining us today.